If I could give advice to people about living with your significant other, I would say don't do it. Don't have your living situation more permanent than the state of your relationship, because your relationship could end with 2 words: we're over. And your lease, you'll be stuck with that until it's over, and then you'll probably have to move, and it's not worth it.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Simon. We do philosophy through pop culture, and I have one for you today that I think might make you defensive, but just hear me out. I do not think we should be moving in with our boyfriends. This also applies to all genders and orientations, but for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to be mainly focusing on the girlies, because right now in my own personal life, I am so concerned for this young girl who I do not even know yet, who has made the decision to pair up with a man I do know in my life who I know for a fact is lying to her. And I think what pains me as an older sister, as a cousin, as a daughter, as a person in her life who has deconstructed and worked so hard to better not only my own life, but to share that wisdom with others, I have done my due diligence in the best way possible to try to get this girl's attention. And I feel like it's not just about her, because I don't know her. It's about every young girl who's 18, 19, 20, and some guy who's 30, 35, 40 is convincing them to leave their life and come be with him. And I think in this situation, personally, it's even worse for me because she's gonna marry him.
19.
29. I like them young.
How does a 10-year age gap relationship work?
Perfect age gap for a relationship.
Why?
Well, see, when they're 19, you can train them. You can train them, you know. They're very young, so, you know, you can influence them and train them to be the perfect woman for you.
You feel like that's true?
Yes.
Do you feel like your boyfriend is misogynistic?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with our relationship. It has worked for us. Like, guys my age are not, like, mature enough.
Now, often on this channel, we talk about how the world is a reflection of us as a whole, and we sit here and wonder, how did Trump get into office? How did predatory men continue doing what they're doing?
What's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
It's because we continue celebrating situations that put specifically women in danger. Things like encouraging 19-year-old girls to leave home, often toxic homes, and to move in with men who are 30, 40, 50 years old, who claim that they're stable and safe for them, when in reality, they're their next predator.
What's the youngest you guys think you should date age? Like, what's at your age now, what's the youngest you would ever date?
35?
Generally speaking, I think 18. Why not?
Yeah.
You're joking.
You said the youngest legal. She's legally.
You're joking.
She's legally of age.
Was that for everybody?
18.
How old are you?
I said generally speaking. Any age.
He's 40. So
I ain't 40.
he would date.
He's not 40.
I ain't 40. But at the end of the day, an 18-year-old is legal.
Dating an 18.
How is
What's
wrong with that?
Did we not see how the Shannon Sharp situation played out?
I mean, me
Well,
particularly.
he was messing with a slur.
She was 19.
that had ulterior motives.
Because it's legal doesn't mean
it's right.
It's like,
Now look, I understand there are exceptions to the rule, as there's 8 billion people on this planet, but generally speaking, I'm never going to be excited when a 19-year-old and a 30-year-old get together. And I know for a lot of the world that's crazy, and for a lot of the world they don't care because these people are legally adults. But if I've learned anything about life, and I have so much more to learn, it isn't going to bode well, especially for the younger person. Especially since I know these older people are often lying to these younger people, because the reality is a 30-year-old should know better. They should know better than trying to marry and or date and or move in a 19-year-old.
How are you, man?
I mean, even in this example with Cruz Beckham, 19, kissing his girlfriend at the time, Jackie Apostle, 30. Come on, like, look at their age difference. Look at their faces. Look at their bodies. She just looks like a grown woman with a teenage boy. It is obviously very off-putting. So again, gender doesn't really even play a role here. It is about age gap. Why is a 30-year-old woman even kissing, touching, or looking at a teenager in that particular way? So just for some background, I'm 36 years old. I left my parents' house at 21. I've had roommates. I've lived with partners. I've lived with siblings and friends, and I've lived alone. And for myself, what I learned over time was that I was sick of moving out of my partner's homes or moving them out of mine. So when I started courting my now married partner, I actually told them one of the conditions of us dating was that we were not going to live together or mix finances until we were engaged. Meaning until we made a long-term commitment, I was not going to act like we were long-term committed. Now, to be fair to my past self in my 20s, though I had lived with partners, I had never, ever shared income. I had never shared bank accounts. And I never did anything financial as if we were the same person. Versus now, we are the same person. Obviously, we're two individuals in a marriage, but that marriage structure is we share absolutely everything. Everything gets discussed. Everything is our plan for the future. We are a family. The difference for me, the wisdom I hope to share with you, is that for me, I now have a family that is me and my partner. And all those boyfriends I moved in and out of, they were not my family. They were boys engaging in immature love because at the time I was immature. So the people I was attracting, the people I was dating were also pretty immature, regardless if they were older or not. And I learned as I went to therapy and did my work philosophically and as I became more mature that I wanted a relationship that reflected that change and that maturity.
Our first night living together. Okay, I'll be right back.
Sounds good, babe. Love you.
Okay, scoot over.
Why are your hairs all over the shower? Are you a psychopath? What are you doing to get hairs on the shower door?
It's so it won't clog the drains, okay? You're the one leaving your beard trimmings everywhere.
And I know when we're young, we think, oh, I'm in love and this guy's so much better than the house I grew up in. And this is the first guy who showed me any kind of care and he's older and he's got a place and I just really love him. When you are dating, date, enjoy each other, spend time at each other's homes. But there's no reason to move in with somebody you're trying to figure out if you want to be with. And I say this as somebody who did that exact thing. So I understand you're thinking, okay, but Brittany, it's going to be different for me. And maybe it will be. But if you were like me and you were not the exception to this rule, moving in with people I was dating to see if I wanted to marry them was a mistake I made.
Get ready with me while I tell you why you should move in with your boyfriend before you're married or engaged. Welcome to my new get ready room. Very controversial. I can't speak. You know me, I'm the worst at pronouncing things. Moved in with my boyfriend a couple days ago. I think you should move in with your boyfriend before you're married or engaged because you get to know each other. You find out everything about a person once you move in with them. Trust me.
I am not saying it will be a mistake for you. I'm just saying you might be someone who might be thinking to yourself, do I really want to live with this person? Do I really want to move them out? And not to get too dark, but I think this is really important. In 2026, we have to be so serious about who we're dating. And domestic violence is more likely if you're living with somebody. It is very hard for you to leave a toxic relationship if you're financially dependent on that person. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to be financially independent, be secure in yourself, and to rely more on roommates or family, friends, siblings, people you can trust that when you live with them, they're not going to take advantage of you. They're not going to domestic abuse you. They're not going to financially screw you. They're going to be supportive of you. I would rather you get a roommate that has a sort of understood 50-50 relationship, financially responsible for the rent, than move in with a guy just to see if you like him, just to move him out 6 months later, or worse, to get stuck in a 2-year lease. And I understand that because something in my life is happening right now, and I always try to use my life to be very realistic about other people's, I am terrified at the idea that some 19-year-old girl is about to move in with this loser man, and she's about to be absolutely convinced that he's going to be good for her when he can't even be good for himself or the people around him.
I'm in a relationship with a 19-year-old, and I am getting the most love and the most nurturing and the most happiness I have received in any of those relationships.
And I don't want to address the 30-year-old. I want to address the 19-year-old in the room. And you'll often get the same responses over and over, like, oh, but you're so young. He's just manipulating you. He's too immature. And you may be mature, but you're not mature enough. Let's take that out of the conversation. Let's ask one question. Why is it that, say, a 30-year-old like me might turn a man of the same age away? And that's because I have the wisdom as a 30-year-old woman to enforce my boundaries because I've been through enough relationships to push back.
Terrifies me about the possibilities of what can happen. I know she thinks, everyone else is crazy and he's the greatest and he's so sweet, and I get it. There is no way she fully knows the story and is moving in with him. Even if she fully knows the story, what does that even mean? At this point, if we're so young, we can't even process the reality of it. Because I did this in my past, that we meet a person and they have a really good story, they have childhood trauma, and you just see him, you see his potential, and you see how wonderful he is and he's all of those things. And he's also a liar. And he's also targeting people who are younger. And he's also a lot of things.
When I was 19, I dated a 33-year-old man. And every year of my life, I am still not 33. And I think about that. This year, I hooked up with a guy who was 25, and it was noticeable. He had so much energy in a way that he was like skibbity doing, you know what I mean? I'm 28 right now. If a 19-year-old came up to me, I'd be like, oh, are you lost? Do you need me to call your mom?
I know you really, really like the person you're dating, and I think you should continue dating them. And I think you should be very diligent about conversations about politics and morals and ethics and rights and wrongs. And I think you should have conversations that are transparent, that do ask, hey, have you ever dated a teenager? Like, hey, have you ever hit on somebody who's still in high school? These are questions that we don't ask on first dates because we're never assuming we are with that person. The truth is that some of you are dating that person. Some of you are about to move into an apartment with a man who's 30 years old, hitting on teenagers, who's literally DM'd minors. And I need you to have those conversations because I know they're happening, because I know people they're happening to. I want you to understand that this is coming from a place of a little bit big sister, but also just like grown woman. I know what it's like to exist in a world where you are a young person dating a person 12 years older and you just think, man, they really have it together. But how much of their life can they have together if the only person who's willing to date them is a teenager?
You think he's single by choice? He's single because his wife left him and took everything. I don't know if you knew this, but 80% of the divorce rates are initiated by the woman, mostly because the man is not willing to elevate or change for the better of the relationship.
Why can't they find people their age? Why aren't they dating within their age group?
The dangers of dating older men when you just turned 18. Any man who wants to date a woman child who just turned 18 is actually a PDF.
There are so many things you should ask a person before you move in with them, but a big part of dating is getting to know this person and seeing if you want to be with them. And so one of the things I changed about my dating after my 20s was I switched to courting. I switched to really intentional dating. First date had to go very well for there to be any chance of a second. And the first date was not about fancy dinners. It was about ethics and morals. Where are your stances on these very important issues? Because if you don't even cross this threshold, like if you can't even answer this question correctly, we're not going to a second date. There is no tolerance. There's no growth here. I can't tell you how many financial call-in shows I watch all over the internet, and the amount of financial infidelity, the amount of red flags that show up.
3 moving in together realities you are not thinking about and cannot escape. 1, your feelings have nowhere to hide. It is a lot harder to avoid your emotions when someone's always around witnessing them. You can't escape this person who now basically lives in your emotional business, holding up a mirror to every single one of your moods. No more quietly avoiding your feelings in peace. You're now forced to be more aware of them, which honestly feels pretty rude, if you ask me. 2, decision fatigue will wreck you. What do you want to eat? What do you want to do? What do you want to watch? I want you to shut the fuck up and make a fucking decision, because if I have to choose one more thing today, I'm going to lose my mind and start crying into the takeout menu that I didn't even want to look at in the first place. 3, the spark might suddenly fade. Before moving in together, there was extra motivation to hook up because you weren't going to see each other for a bit. But now that you can do it whenever, you end up doing it never, because whenever turns into later, turns into I'm tired, turns into wait. Are we just roommates with a joint checking account?
We have to have the discernment to know when someone is not in line with us when it comes to morals and ethics before we even try to have conversations about whether or not they're lying to us. We don't even have to worry about if they're lying. Let's hear what they say with their full chest. So if you're dating a man and you ask him like, hey, what's the youngest girl you'd be willing to date? And he's 30 and he says 18. He says whatever the legal age is. Red flag, no second date.
Are we ready to live together? And how are we going to split and handle the cost of this new living arrangement? Now, according to the Mic.com, Close to 30% of couples break up after living together for 3 years, and 14% never make it past the first year of living together.
And I know you're that 19-year-old, you're that 18-year-old, and you're like, yeah, but he's older and he thinks I'm cool, and I hear you and I get it. But I'm telling you, the statistical probability of this not being an abusive relationship is very low, because the toxicity this older person would need to embody in order to even be willing to say barely legal, to be willing to even say 18, is exactly why I'm worried for you. Well, I was looking up videos to talk about age gap relationships. I came across this page, which is obviously AI. It has 24,000 followers and an obviously AI generated person. Check out this video.
Dating older men that genuinely caught me off guard. One, they always back into parking spots.
Okay, right? She says backs. This is obviously an AI. Look at these 3 profiles. Just like look at these 3 profiles that are commenting to her. Everyone is so serious in this chat. Now, one person has said AI yet, and I'm like, are these comments AI? Okay, so then this is one guy. Okay, he's got a face but no followers. This is another guy. Okay, let me see, refresh. Okay, he's got like the most random boomer posts. This guy, I don't even know what's happening here. What is going on here? This guy is just, okay, he's just making like, is he AI? What is happening here? You know what I'm saying? Oh man. And then you go back here. She's obviously AI, bro.
Why do guys get weird about dating redheads? Everything will be okay at first. We're flirting.
Oh my God, you are beautiful, bro. Let's see. Okay, wow, gorge love. It's like, girl, come on now. Like, are these also like AI accounts? Is this a real man? Okay, this man has no bio, but he's hanging out with his doggos. You know what I mean? Are these the older men you guys are so obsessed with being with? No, you probably think you're going to end up with an older guy who looks like George Clooney. Oh God, I just dated myself. But that's not what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with a guy who is like any of these guys. You know what I mean? He's just a regular Joe Schmo who thinks he's going to get a girl who looks like this. And look, it's not even about that. It's not about the superficiality of it. Though I do think with a lot of age gap relationships, it becomes very superficial. It becomes a part of fulfilling a fantasy. The question is, do you want the love of your life to think of you as a fantasy, or do you want them to love you for who you are as a consciousness? And trust me when I say this, a lot of these older men who are dating younger girls are also like deeply insecure. And because they are deeply insecure, they're looking for that validation that people still value them, but they're just getting it from the wrong place. Instead of going to therapy and fixing whatever happened in their childhood, they're dating your daughters, your children, the young people, teenagers.
The Olsen twins. Why is every guy in America waiting for these chicks to turn 18? I mean, you know what I say? If there's grass on the field, play ball!
There are so many men with microphones who are so willing to brag out loud about their desire to be with basically children, because I'm sorry, at 18, 19, you're not a grown woman. You're not a grown person. You're an adult. You're a legal adult. I didn't feel grown till I was 27. And now that I'm 36, I'm even more aware of how not grown I quite am just yet. Like, I'm grown more than I was at 18, but I'm not like grown. I still have the grown stage to reach. I want to encourage you to give yourself a second to breathe, that allow you to date as many people as you want, that allow you to have them stay over your house, maybe even weeks at a time, but also give you the ability to say, after 3 months of dating, you know what? You've been great, but I'm actually not interested. Or even after 6 months or 8 months or a year of dating, I like you so much, but it seems we're not morally aligned. We're not ethically in line. Hey, I really like you and I think you're a really great person. I just don't think you're my person. Because, you know, you could have 2 great people who are dating and they're still not, you know, right for each other. And that's okay too. There's always videos on TikTok about this, like, I'm a girl who's dating a great guy and he just wasn't for me. Yeah, 2 really great people doesn't mean that's your person. It doesn't mean that's your high compatibility partner. It doesn't mean that's the human being who's going to go through Alzheimer's and dementia with you.
Why did no one tell me that breaking up with someone who hasn't necessarily done anything wrong to you is literally the hardest thing in the world? Because I just broke up with my boyfriend of 5 years. So we've been dating for 5 years, and honestly, I have nothing but good things to say about him. But obviously, we had our trials and tribulations throughout the relationship because, again, we were together for 5 years. But during the 5 years that we were together, when we first started dating, we both started in the same place. So it naturally, like, I don't know, like, we were having fun. It was a lot of fun. But, like, within 5 years, I grew so much. And I don't want to say he didn't grow at all, but he just hasn't really progressed as far as I have in the 5 years that I have. And it's not because he's not capable of doing and moving fast, but it's because he doesn't apply himself to the fullest.
So with that in mind, tell me what 30-year-old is going to date a 19-year-old and is still progressing? Because again, stagnation is never the goal if you're interested in introspection and you want to become a better person. And I'm not talking about becoming a better person in a capitalistic hustle way. I mean ethically, morally. If you are interested in progressing in terms of ethics, morals, rights and wrongs, then you have to keep up with what young people are doing and you have to age into maturity. So if you've got a 30-year-old who's hanging out with younger people who haven't figured anything out about life, then that 30-year-old is not only stagnant in terms of maybe money or career, but is probably stagnant in terms of ethics and morals.
Hi, is Chaz here? What the fuck do you want?
I just had the realization as I was creating this podcast that some of you might be too young to have watched Wedding Crashers, but just so you understand, Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson are friends who crash weddings to sleep with girls. Their mentor of sorts was a guy played by Will Ferrell, and at the end of the movie, Owen Wilson, who's having a struggle in terms of falling in love or continuing to wedding crash, goes to Will Ferrell for inspiration and finds out this guy who was a myth, a legend, is actually just some loser who still lives with his mom and crashes funerals to get girls. The reason I'm using this as an example is because this sort of failure to launch immature male adult that ends up relying on the women in his life to take care of him allows himself to believe he's the hero of the story while literally just being a mooch. The idea being that these older men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are dating these younger girls aren't doing it because they're providers. They're doing it because they're relying on these women for emotional support, and the kind that means more emotional labor than actual just emotional support. And ironically enough, a lot of these guys end up living off their girls' income. It was certainly true in my own case that I never dated someone even when they were older who was making more money than I was or was more financially secure. So the sort of myth around them being older and mature, good with money and good with emotions, well, there's always something that's going to give when a much older person is dating a much younger person. All of this to say, if you haven't seen The Wedding Crashers, the lesson at the end of the movie is basically that there's more to life than crashing weddings and funerals to get girls, and that a real connection with another person is more valuable and fulfilling in the end. But obviously, like this lady is saying about her 5-year relationship, it's stagnation that is forcing the situation to look like it should work.
Living the dream. Where'd you get that girl? I rode my bike over to a cemetery nearby. Her boyfriend just died. You met her at a funeral? Yeah.
And it's obviously not going to work because eventually that 19-year-old is going to be 30 themselves, and hopefully they'll be way beyond where that 30-year-old is, and then they'll actually have the realization of, uh-oh, wait a second. And which by the way, is exactly what happened to me. I was in my early 20s and I was dating somebody 12 years older, and as I grew older, I realized like, oh, you're stagnant. No wonder you're in your late 30s dating somebody in their early 20s. You can't date people your age. So I realized dating this person didn't make any sense because I didn't want to be stagnant. Oh my gosh. And now that I think about it, after all these years, I haven't dated this person in oh my gosh, I dated them in 2012. It's 2026. I'm still not as old as they were when they were dating me. Oh my gosh. So just to put that into perspective, as much as it might make sense to some people for 19-year-olds to date 30-year-olds, when you really think about what goes into making that happen, you realize the level of stagnation is just a huge red flag. So once again, I'm not saying you shouldn't live with your partners. I'm saying there's no reason to live with your partners until you're committed to that person, because at the end of the day, you are adult enough to visit each other's homes, to stay with each other. And if you're not, maybe that should bring into question whether or not you're even ready to be in a relationship that is quite adult. Because I understand when you're young, you think dating is a little bit more like, I don't know, go with the flow. But when you're older and you're really thinking about partnership, mixing finances, credit scores, retirement plans, dating is a much more serious game and deserves your attention in terms of those details. So like this lady said, she was dating this guy for 5 years. When they started off, they were on the same page, but they grew apart. Not because he couldn't apply himself, but because he chose not to. And this is a very common phenomenon in current day dating where women are progressing past their male partners. So just keep that in mind as you're dating, because even if you date a man who isn't quite career focused, which is totally fine, they cannot be the reason the relationship becomes stagnant. They must pursue their life in some fashion, maybe philosophically, towards the future. They cannot become stagnant and claim to be a team player.
Society has these stigmas on the man.
It's the latest development in a seismic shift decades in the making.
We tore up the old script for women. We said, no, the future's female. You go, girl. Future president. Women can be anything. Incredibly inspiring, empowering script that we put around girls and young women now. What's the new empowering, exciting, and inspiring script for men that we've replaced that old one with? We didn't replace it.
I would just like to point out here that the way we are talking about the loneliness epidemic is going to play into our dating life. I do want to make a whole video on this, but I think this is very important when we talk about men falling behind women. We have to remember, even though women were given all of these great slogans and we did all these protests, we still haven't had a female president. Like, just a reminder, even though they keep saying women are ahead and men are falling behind, men still make up most CEOs, all presidents, majority of leaders. So yes, women are excelling, but that's in spite of how society has tried to keep us behind. So often women will complain about being in relationships with men. They move in with their boyfriends and the boyfriend isn't vulnerable. He's not open. He won't go to therapy. He won't actually work on himself, which is why I wanted to make this podcast, because I wanted to encourage you to say, we're adults. We don't need to live together until we're sure. And until then, I'm not going to get into a legal contract with you. I don't think it is working to pressure us into marriages or settling for relationships just because we're, quote, lonely. The loneliness epidemic is a meaning crisis. But that is a podcast for another day. All of this to say, be careful who you're moving in with. Make sure you are moving in with somebody who's truly on the same page as you, because this person will be in your home, in your body, in your mind, in your spirit. And they should, in my mind, be a good person the way you're a good person, because we all deserve to be with partners who will treat us with the dignity that we deserve. Marriage should be a team effort. The most exciting, building of a family, just the two of you. Maybe you add kids down the line, but the truth is just the two of you, that is a family. And I think you deserve to have a safe family, a strong family, an educated family, a healthy family. And I just don't see how you're going to have a healthy family if you leave one dysfunctional family for another one. And that's often what happens, is these young girls are 18, 19 years old, coming from dysfunctional homes, marrying men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s because they're not healthy, and I don't blame you. But instead of moving in with a man, try finding a therapist. Instead of moving in with a man, let's try to get our dream job. Instead of moving in with a man, let's try to put ourselves in a position of safety away from the environment we were raised in and into an environment of our own. I want to empower you to build your own bubble, your own safe environment, and then to interact with the world. So on this channel, in my work, if you guys don't know, I'm normally a full-time streamer, but this is what I do part-time. And the reason I come and make these podcasts is because sometimes you won't have time to watch my stream. Sometimes you're not into watching people live, but you might click on this video. And I want you to remember that the goal of life through a philosophical lens is to have a good and joyful relationship with yourself and everything outside of yourself. The healthier your relationship with self is, the healthier your environment will be. The healthier your friends will be, the healthier your lovers will be. I want you to free yourself and liberate yourself from the feeling and pressure of needing to be partnered so you can choose the right partner, or so you can live your best life single, because there's nothing wrong with that. I would rather you be single in your dream home than be partnered and married to somebody who's willing to abuse or be toxic towards you. Financial infidelity, physical infidelity, emotional infidelity, spiritual infidelity, they are up, they are rampant. And so you have to choose a person that's like you, somebody who wouldn't do those things.
I hate to be the friend that's always like, that's the bare minimum, that's the bare minimum. But girl, it is the bare minimum. He paid for your food? Great, my dad does that. He said that you were pretty? My mom does that every single day, and all her Facebook friends do too. Oh, he opened your door? My gay best friend does that. It is the bare minimum, girl, because if he's your boyfriend or if he's your partner, he should want to do those things for you. And if my friends and my family can already do the things that he's doing without...
People like her are so exhausting to deal with in real life. The fact that you think those are bare minimum activities because you know other people who also do them doesn't make it bare minimum. Because like in any logical person's brain, I can literally do the same thing back and say, hey, you understand, like, you've never cooked me a meal. You know my mom does that, so if you're not doing that, like, I'm getting the bare minimum. My mom calls me super handsome every single day. You've never really done that much, so, basically I'm settling here. I have a female best friend at work that says that I'm a really nice guy and I'm actually a really great guy, so technically, if you're not calling me a great guy, I'm settling. It's almost like familial love and romantic love are completely different, and the fact that you're comparing what your dad does and your mom does to what your metaphorical boyfriend does, crazy. Because the thing with this argument is literally everything at this point would be the bare minimum, because I can name pretty much everything that is a nice thing to do and say, oh, I know somebody else in my family who does that too. Because I would argue and ask this girl, what do you do to the man that he couldn't go and get from his mom, his dad, his best guy friend, maybe a really close girlfriend?
I just saw a meme that said I grew up with an amazing dad, and it led me to believe that men were actually good.
And prayed with me. So imagine my surprise. I'm an adult in my 20s with my own place and crib, and I'm getting asked out, hey, can I get your number, whatever. And I'm thinking this man is going to be the example that I've had my whole life, and that was furthest from the case.
And then I thought, well, maybe it's the age, because I was in my 20s. Maybe it's the age. As I get older, it'll get better. That's also false. That's also false.
Man, I grew up with a shitty mom, so that led me to believe that, all women were going to be shitty when I got older. See how that works, right? Or what about the guys who y'all complain about, who get on here and talk about how y'all are not the women that their mothers are? Because they grew up with a great mother who spoiled them, who cooked for them, who cleaned behind them, who picked up behind them, who did all the things that a good mother's supposed to do that y'all turn y'all nose up at, right? A mother that didn't play about him, emotionally provided for him, protected his feelings, didn't belittle him. All the things that men get on here and say that their mothers are so great for, that y'all say, oh, I'm not going to do that because I'm not your mama. It's funny how y'all get on here with this trend about, I had a great father, so I thought, men, when I dated, were going to treat me like my daddy. And it led me to believe that all men were going to be good. And then when I got out here, I realized men ain't shit. But that's because you're not fucking your daddy. Your daddy provides you unconditional love, unconditional providing, nurturing things, because that's your daddy. You know what I'm saying? The same about a mother. That's your mother, not your girl. Romantic relationships are risk. Romantic relationships are give and take.
So these two TikToks from both of these gentlemen miss the point. These girls are taught to believe they should marry men who treated them the way their fathers did. But of course, that also misses the point. What the actual lesson is supposed to be is that we're supposed to marry men who treat us the way our fathers treated our mothers, not the way our fathers treated us growing up, because our relationships are different. But I will say, in terms of bare minimum, regardless of who it is in my life, I do kind of expect kindness and dignity, courtesy, consideration. So that isn't specific to romantic relationships. And I will say the one defining factor that makes a marriage versus a friendship is usually how much of life you're doing together. Not to say that you can't do life with your friends. Lots of people do.
I don't practice a relationship model that sees romantic love as more than friendship love.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So for me, I treat my friends like people would treat their romantic partners. We're going out on dates. We're taking vacations together. We're making life plans together. We're sharing resources. And what that's meant for me is that I never have to fear being alone.
But for me, and I'm sure for many people, the way I love my partner is different than the way I love other people. Though I will say I love my partner unconditionally. That doesn't mean our union in marriage isn't conditional. Obviously, if there's abuse, we'll get divorced. But my love for him won't change. It won't dissipate. But just because I love you doesn't mean I have to be in your life. The same way, even though I love all my siblings, it doesn't mean I talk to all my siblings. Just because I love my parents doesn't mean I don't practice open with boundaries with them. And sometimes we go months without talking. Honestly, if I was dating somebody, these would be really good TikToks to show them, because if they agreed with the men, because the men both had bad attitudes, that would be a good red flag to end the date. Because remember, the kind of content we watch online does say a lot about us.
Talk about something I see all the time in couples therapy: people moving in together before they're actually talked about how they're actually going to live together. Moving in isn't just about sharing a space, it's about sharing a life. And the couples that thrive, they talk about it before the lease is signed. Here's what you have to talk about first. Number one, expectations and routines. Who's the night owl? Who's the early bird? What happens when one person needs quiet to decompress and the other wants to process the day right away? That stuff sounds small, but it's the difference between peace and resentment. Number two, finances, the subject no one wants to talk about. I know it's not sexy, but love without clarity often turns into confusion. Talk about what's being split, who's covering what, and how you'll handle surprises. Money issues are rarely about money. They're about fairness, safety, and trust. Number three, division of labor, and whoa, this is a huge one. If one of you can't stand clutter and the other doesn't notice it, that's going to be a problem. Are you okay with doing most of the cleaning if your partner handles meals? Talk about it now so you're not quietly keeping score later.
This always comes back down to values. What are your values? Because remember, the state of the world isn't a fluke. It's a reflection of us as a whole. The state of the world is in chaos because human beings are chaotic. And again, I know it's hard to process, but Epstein and Trump, they're not unique situations. 1 in 24 men, according to some studies in Australia, claim they would attempt things with children if nobody caught them. Think about that. And then process the information that the man you might be moving in with, the man you might be dating, who is literally all that older than you, might be one of those men. Because At 18 and 19, you are basically legal children. And I'm sorry to phrase it that way because I know you finally feel like an adult, but you're not grown. And I think you deserve a chance to come into your own adulthood, your own womanhood, before some man who should have already learned these lessons on his own and gone to therapy and done all those things, comes into your life and promises you things he cannot deliver. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the sections below and I'll try to respond to as many comments as I can. But remember, I am not here to blame you. I am not trying to guilt you. I am just trying to share some wisdom that I've learned in my 36 years. And I hope it helps you. Also, P.S. for those asking, because I know you're smart and you will, I have not talked to this man in a long time. When I tried to call him out for his behavior in targeting young girls, he blocked me, as men do who are misogynistic and angry. And the only reason I know that he has targeted a 19-year-old and is trying to marry her is because people that know him called me and told me that it was happening. And I am frustrated that I feel like my hands are tied and one more girl will be tricked into being with these men who will never hold themselves accountable. And it's devastating from a personal perspective because, you know, I knew this guy when he was a kid and I knew him his whole life. And I'm sad for his childhood self that never got the help he needed and he became a man that reflected that lack of help. And even more so, it's his inability to look in the mirror and face himself that will now curse this young girl into being trapped into a legal contract with a man who won't face himself. And I'm so devastated. And so I hope this podcast helped because I think you really deserve to be with somebody who will not only face themselves, but will encourage you to do the same. I think you deserve to be safe. And I think you deserve to be in a transparent relationship where your partner has nothing to hide from you because there's nothing to hide, especially not something like I've targeted underage girls. You know? All right. Bye.